is good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another edition of the Fundamism podcast. I'm on cloud 9 and rising because mainly it's what is today? Monday? It's a Monday, and I'm starting my day off with one of my favorite things, being around individuals that give me energy and strength. And today is an individual that's done that in my life for quite some time. Now, we've all had the pleasure, if you tuned into our first podcast ever, of listening to this gentleman. However, we've both grown a ton since then, and I cannot wait to explore our journey and detail out some of the things that we've gone through in self-discovery. But before we do that, I'd like to shout out our sponsor, Charlie Hustle. Charlie Hustle, like our guest today, has been with us for some time and supporting the brand. And we're about to drop our first ever Charlie Hustle shirt, the Fundamism What's Good shirt, and I'm super excited about it. As soon as my web guy gets the platform ready for us to have it out there, it's going to be available for purchase. So strap in. Speaking of web guys, hey, Larry Perez is our guest today on the Fundamism podcast. This is round 2 for you, brother. How you doing?
Good, man.
You feeling good?
Just the web guy.
Just a web guy. We're going to talk more about that and many more items. But before we do so, we start every podcast with what do you do for fun? And you told us last time, what have you introduced new in your life since the last time we talked that you do for fun?
Man, you know, I'm always on this journey of self-discovery, reflecting, that kind of thing. I actually think that's a lot of fun. I don't know. I think a lot of people might not think that that's the case for themselves, but I find in this world that the more that I discover myself, the more I'm able to go out and do things that I wouldn't otherwise do, you know? That's what I'm doing for fun. That's what I'm always doing for fun.
Well, what's interesting about that comment is you are an individual that looks internally often. And with that skill set and being self-reflective and understanding where your strengths and areas of opportunity lie, you're also fantastic at helping others self-discover and not necessarily telling, because we all have that innate trait in us where we feel the need to tell people what to do or what they should be doing. But the most powerful tool in any leader's tool belt, any friend or family member, is the ability to create an environment for self-discovery. And that's fun for you, but not only is it fun for you for yourself in creating that environment to where you're reflective in what's working and what's not working, but you create that environment for others as well. That's a lot of wells. So let's get into the well.
Okay.
How did that come about? Is that something that has come to you with age, with wisdom, with time, or is that always how you've been?
I think all of the above. No, it's not always how I've been, actually. Realized this transition, if you want to call it that anyway, to creating that environment really was created by my kids. You know, I think I mentioned in the first podcast that I was awarded sole custody of all 3 of my children. Basically, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know really what the functions of a real father were. I thought up to that point it was just about make money, take care of the kids, get them what they need, keep moving on in life. And so the ones that have actually helped me figure that out are my kids. They're the ones that basically brought to the table, you know, without saying, hey, Dad, this is what you need to do. You know, they were always busy creating their environment, as kids do. You know what I mean? They don't really worry about much. They seemingly always want to have a great environment around them, and they're always encouraging, and they're always wanting to explore, and they're, you know, so I took a lot from that. And obviously there's a process that, you know, once you become conscious of that, there's a process of challenge. It's not a process. You start getting the challenges come up to the surface, and you have to deal with those things in order to be able to go out there and have fun, create that environment for other people.
Well, I think that's the biggest struggle for so many in life, is you mentioned that you have to deal with that in order to get where you aspire to be. But for one reason or the other, it's so much easier for folks just to say that that's getting in the way and not do anything as a result. And so you mentioned that your children have been catalysts in revealing this need for growth and self-development and reflection. Another thing that you do very, very well is you understand the value that others have in your life. And specifically, if folks aren't adding value in your life, you don't really surround yourself with them very often.
I used to, and then there was a point, even up to recently, where I deliberately did that.
Well, and I don't mean selfishly. I'm not even saying like you're going to give me something or you're not going to be in my life.
I guess my whole thing about that is, I can recognize those things in people just as much as you can recognize the great things, the not so great things. But I've just kind of developed this open door policy. For instance, what I've been working on lately for the last 5 months is judgment. That's something that I have always suffered with. It was always everybody else's fault. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And it really boiled down a few months ago where it was like, you really can be pretty judgmental. And so I've been working on that. I've been working on just allowing and just allowing things to unfold without trying not to have judgment. Because each person has just as much good in them as they do the things that you might think are negative about those people. Mm-hmm. So one of the ways that I've kind of, stumbled upon creating an environment for each person that I'm around that's pretty level is that, when I see things like that, like something that makes me uncomfortable or they're negative or whatever, I really kind of remove the blame and the judgment, and I really look at that situation that might be unfolding, and I ask myself, what is it about me that is allowing me to see this? What is it about me? Instead of placing judgment, it's easy to just judge and move on and go, I just don't want to hang out with it. But, we can, all of us, we can find just as much negativity in someone as we can the positive. And I think, I was thinking about this the other day. Isn't it funny how everyone is exactly how you think they are?
Yes. Rob, our camera guy, is back with us. It's good to see you again, sir. We've missed you. Isn't it interesting, sir, how everybody is exactly how you want to see them?
How you think they are.
How you think we are. Think about that. Ponder that. That is super deep. It's deep, he says.
So it is. But so here's the thing. If you really think about that, it really removes all of that needing or feeling that you have to judge a situation. You simply just have to change your mind. That's really what it is. And so I'm discovering that when I change my mind about something, or instead of going, man, I could really drill this situation, and because I would in the past, I would really just lay on it until I thought it went away. Well, it never went away.
You always lay on it,
right? And hopefully they'll not edit that. But
who's they? Yeah, they is me.
Oh, they is you. So you see people. This is how the news is crafted. So this is exactly how it's done. Right.
This is your narrative, right, bro. I don't edit out to make it sound like how I want to sound.
Right. So anyway, what was I saying?
You're saying sometimes you just got to lay on it.
I would feel the need to have to do that. And you know what? I don't have anything to teach anybody. That's what I'm realizing. I really don't. I just need to be present. And I have everything to teach myself. And I think as I teach myself through this whatever discovery process, everything around me is going to be fine.
You and I can talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. And a lot of folks don't know the extent of the role that you've played in my development. And I could honestly say that, while I had the skill set to be able to talk in front of groups of people, and potentially the energy to help people feel empowered, I was lost in terms of how to allow that stuff to manifest its nature in my work environment and my ability to make money. And you helped me through that process. And, I give you grief and we crack jokes because I call you a web guy, or had at one point in time, but you're really so much more than that. You've been a personal guide to me. And to this day, I like to think that it's not just because it's episode number 1, which is typically where people start with things, but you are the top interview, the interviewed podcast, the top rated interview podcast of the Fundamism podcast. So you're number 2 all time in downloads, next to a solo cast that we did, A Heart Made of Purple. But you're the number 1 interviewed guest that we've ever had in terms of downloads. And when I originally interviewed you, my mom said to me, listening to that gentleman was fascinating. And the reason why it was fascinating to me is because he has an approach that speaks more to me and my style. Not news to you that I'm kind of, I'm out there. I'm energetic. I'm loud. I'm at times a lot to handle for some. So your style and your very deliberate nature and how you communicate and ability to create this environment for self-discovery is one that connects with a lot of people. What amazes me about that, Larry, is you mentioned again that your children have helped you through this process of self-discovery. And oftentimes I could tell when you're going through this journey, which is a constant process for you, you'll talk to me. And for one reason or the other, we'll have very honest conversations about what's going on in your life and what's going on in my life. And there's always a moment where you're like, gosh damn it, Paul, you're right. You're right. And I know specifically you've said I'm right around one topic no less than 5 or 6 times. The reason why I bring that up is because we are so great about giving other people advice or helping them through their journey or looking at people's stories through a lens, an unbiased lens, and saying, maybe if we tried this, but it's so damn difficult to do it on our own. So for you, what's your take on that? Why is it easy? Why is it easier for you to tell or walk others through what they could be doing or what they should be doing or create that element of self-discovery than it is for you to heed your own advice?
Okay, so
there's a lot there. Sorry.
There is a lot there. And first off, nobody's perfect. We all strive for that. And it's easy for us to recognize the things in other people. Like I said, okay, to put this into perspective, because it's all we have, I learn about myself through other people. That's how I learn. And so when I'm going through a situation, as I have, being around you, you've known, several of the different situations that I take myself through or continue to plow through and that kind of thing. And my advice to others is different at times.
It's hypocritical at times, right?
Well, it can be thought to be hypocritical.
Sure.
But the point is, nobody knows why we're here. Okay? And to a great extent, I feel like I'm being guided. It's not always my decision. So sometimes when I say something, it's what I want my decision to be. But when I check in with my feelings, it's hard. It's much more difficult because you see, like I said, you can choose to see the greatness in someone. If I'm struggling in a, let's say, relationship.
Hypothetically.
Yeah. If I'm struggling in the relationship, if my old self would be, man, I got to roll. I got to get out of this. This is toxic. This is whatever I want to label it to be. Well, over the last year, and I've already mentioned, for the last few months, I've been working on specifically judgment. I have recognized was really one of my biggest things. When you start to dissolve the ability to judge, you start seeing people the way that they should really be. because it's hard. You take other people's perspective. You're always considering other people's perspective to try to figure out if yours is right. So am I really seeing it through my lens? If I'm sharing it with other people and they're giving me their perspective on it, and I leave that, that conversation with a brand new perspective, is it really mine? And those are the questions that I have really, really started to dig in and ask myself. So, and a lot of the listeners might be able to relate to this. Have you ever, let's just talk about dating life for a second. Have you ever dated somebody and then, man, like 2 years later, you're just like, it was great for the first year, and then the last year has just been complete hell.
Yeah.
Right? And then so you take some time off, and whatever that time is, maybe you're reflecting, maybe it's whatever it is, you're going out, you're having fun, and you notice that your life really takes a turn for the better. And you're like, man, I'm free and I'm all of this. And then all of a sudden you meet somebody and you get back in a relationship, and it's exactly the same relationship
Yes.
it was last time.
Yes.
It's not the other people.
Right.
Okay. And this is why it's important.
It's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. Okay, because we will continue that pattern until we finally realize that it was never them to begin with. You could have thought differently about that person. And that's a big challenge. In society, it's like, it's easy to discard and it's easy to throw somebody away. Well, really all you're doing is cheating yourself out of your own growth.
Right.
And for the sake of, I want to go out, I want to be free, I want to have fun, I want to do all these things, you don't really ever know that you're just denying figuring out who you are. And you can't figure out who you are if you don't have anybody around. And if you keep just tossing people to the side, that issue that you have will never get resolved. So that's when I really started to realize that judgment for me was a big thing. Man, I don't like the way this person does something, so I'm just gonna, cut them out, cut them off, do those types of things. And I think I mentioned to you one time before that, I deliberately meet my demons. I do it on a daily basis. Avoidance is not one of those things that I do very well. I want to know more about myself, and what the beauty about all of this is that the more that I do that, and the more that I learn about myself through other people and figure out what my problems are, the world around me changes.
Right. But there's so much here to unpack. You said you can't do a lot of that stuff on your own or when you're alone.
Yeah.
And you do hit your demons head on. There's so many people that are in their head about what's not working, or their demons, or the self-reflection, and they get in their head to where they can't get out, and they become recluses, or they pull the proverbial covers over their head, or whatever it may be. When you're going through these times, I feel it. I feel your energy. I feel that you're in a dark space and you close off. You don't allow people in during that time. So is that part of the process? When you say you can't be alone in that journey, but that's what you do at times. How does that work?
Well, the key word is at times. So it isn't, when you have your own shit, the last thing you want to do is sling it on people.
Right.
So those are the times when I feel it, and everybody has it. When I feel it, those are the times that I need stillness the most. Those are the times that I need to just sit still and not really think of anything. Maybe do something mindless for a while, or get back to playing my guitar, whatever those things are. But the last thing on my mind is slinging my shit all over somebody else. I'm not going to... I can learn about myself that way, but I've done enough of that to know that the pattern is exactly the same. So then being conscious about it makes it easier to just not do that to people. So I consider that to be a random act of kindness.
I'm going to not throw my shit on you today.
Right.
You're welcome.
Right. So, you do. It's kind of like in the art world. I'm a very artistic person, so I can't just sit down and do it. Okay. There's a process that it takes me through. I have to reach those feelings in order to feel motivated or inspired or whatever to do something. But then there's that time that I have to step away from that piece for a while and do something different, get my mind off of it so that I can
Fundamism stuff.
Yeah, so I can come back and do and see the results of my feelings or my thoughts or whatever I'm taking myself. You can't see it when you're in it, is what I'm saying. You have to remove yourself from it. So as it relates to maybe relationships with people, yeah, I think it's super important to do that. I didn't think so. You used to think so. I didn't.
You reference a lot of what in your journey.
Mm-hmm.
Like you realize that sometimes the worst that you see in others is actually a reflection of yourself, right? You understand that if you are going through these difficult reflective moments or you're addressing your demons and you're hitting them head on, then you're not throwing your shit on everybody else. People that are listening to this, many of us know the what. We've self-diagnosed what our problems are potentially. We've embraced who we are or where our gaps lie. We may have misplaced that diagnosis or messed it up per se, but at least in our head, we know, I'm somewhat narcissistic or I like to argue. You had mentioned relationships before. Mm-hmm. I found myself growing up, and I was just talking to Rob about relationships right before this started, in a lot of toxic relationships. And I would always, I would always be attracted to individuals that for one reason or the other, I'd like to argue with. There was a time in my life where I loved to be right. I love to dominate folks in arguments. Like it gave me, for one reason or the other, and I'm not proud to say this, it made me feel intelligent or like that I had value if I could win in an argument, if I could say something to get you to see, not necessarily that I was right, but you were wrong, right? And so as a result of that, I would attract other individuals that kind of like that energy. They like that negative vibe where we're just constantly at each other's throats. And so to your point, I would recognize, quickly 2, 3, 4 weeks in that we weren't a good match, but man, I would drag it out and drag it out and drag it out and drag it out. This is the long-winded way to say many folks know the what. I knew the what. Individuals listening to this know the what. How do you move on it? Because you said, I shut it off. Now I've realized that about myself. And so I remove myself from judgments. How? Because that sounds easy, but how do you do it?
Yeah. I think the first thing that I discovered about myself was having the awareness that I was a judgmental person. And I say that as if that's the past. I still go through it. Okay. But these are the things that life throws at us that we are here to overcome. If we had a job to do, it would be to overcome, in my mind, it would be to overcome the things that we struggle with so that we can become whole. So there is no real instruction manual on how to do that. I think for me, I can share my journey. I can share some things that I've discovered, but can't tell anybody, hey, this 1, you got to do this, 2, you got to do this, and then, hey, you can end up right here, right? It's not that way. I had to recognize in me the things that were not right. Every day, it wasn't right. But that's what I was, when you finally get to the point where you're willing to admit to yourself that you're the problem, that's when things start getting fixed.
Right.
So how that all unfolds, I have no idea for anybody else. But that is what's led me to this passion of figuring out and knowing thyself, is that if I just stay on this journey, the world around me is going to take care of itself. Okay, so I don't think that anything exists outside of what is around me that I can verify.
Almost to a fault. Like it makes me so frustrated to have these conversations with you because my brain doesn't think that way. I mean, I get energy and I get, our perception of things. But we had a lengthy conversation about whether this building outside of the shop where you're located here in KCK exists. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, it freaking exists, Larry. Like I see it. And that's so deep that a lot of people would look at you talking about judgments and they would say, that guy's a freaking Looney Tune.
Yeah.
But I love it because it really forces me to think. Now I know deep down in my heart that building exists, but you create an environment for me to think about what that means to me or why that is. So forgive me for stealing that from you, but I want people to understand the significance of how you approach things. When you say it only exists if you could specifically experience it, you mean that.
Yeah, I do. Okay, so I had a friend one time that told me, and this is probably, it's great for these times right now, but I had a friend of mine tell me one time that racism exists, okay? And
who was this friend?
I'm not going to say because he's going to listen to this and then he's going to be mad at me.
Side note, it's me. This is a heated conversation. And I love that you're bringing this up right now because this is fantastic for people to hear. I am 100% certain that racism exists.
Okay, so I will just have to say this. I haven't experienced it. And look at me. Okay?
You're Filipino.
Yeah. I'm not your general, whatever you want to say, run-of-the-mill person, look-wise. Okay? I can be judged upon.
Your tattoos?
I can be judged upon very easily.
Are you Filipino?
Yeah,
is that your background?
I am half Filipino. I'm half German and half African American.
But not half Cherokee. Is that true?
Yeah, all three halves.
All three halves.
No, listen.
I'm not good at math.
It's okay. Neither am I, obviously. Okay. So, but anyway, you see, I've always been that little kid that questions everything. I don't want to be taught something. Like, for instance, I was sitting down one day and I had written out a lot of my quote unquote belief systems. And then I asked myself, why do I believe these things? Okay, because I don't agree with a lot of them to some degree. And you know what I discovered? Half of them weren't my belief systems. They were given to me. They were handed down to me. They were, taught to me.
Like hate.
Man. And there was a time where I would feel that towards people. Okay, but I have not experienced racism. So how can I say it exists? That's the thing. And I think, everybody is out, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people are out here slinging truth.
Mm-hmm. Their truth.
Okay, when there's a difference between the word truth and their truth.
Narrative.
All we have is perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're busy trying to convince other people that something does exist, it's that person trying to push their truth upon somebody that doesn't really know any better.
Right.
So that's all I'm saying. And that's me in self-discovery going, at some point, I've kind of dissolved a lot of these belief systems that were handed down once I discovered that I never came up with those ideas to begin with. That's when my mind started going, oh man, I could do this. I could think this. I can go anywhere and not go anywhere at the same time. And I just it really led me to be able to start to stand in what my own truth is. One of the things that I'm sure you'll recognize is that I think everybody's right. Even if I disagree with you, you're right. You're right. And that's really hard. It logically wouldn't make sense if you're using your left brain to think about this. They're right. If that's your experience, you're right. Who am I to tell you that you're wrong? And who are you to try to tell me that I am wrong for not having the experience you have? So I think that's like a major key in healing relationships between people. We get in these relationships, and whether it's a friendship or it's an intimate relationship or whatever, and the moment a disagreement comes up, it's easy. It's easy to blame the other person. They're just this. Okay, and then all these labels start coming out. And, after a while, that person is discovering a pattern that, whether they're willing to admit it or not, they're discovering a pattern that the people keep telling them the same thing, right? Well, that's their truth.
Right.
It's their truth. It's just people keep saying that because they are uncomfortable with that.
Right. What I appreciate about what you're saying is, and it's an extreme example. You brought up the topic of racism, but you think this way with everything politics. We've had the same conversation with Trump and all that stuff, and you're not supportive of any one party. You like this element of chaos, like of bringing the real people out, or at least what we perceive to be our real selves, right?
Yeah.
And so, religion is another topic. I was listening to stand-up comedy in the car on the way up here. I've really been listening a lot, especially in my drives to Iowa, Nebraska, wherever it is I'm going. I listen to stand-up comics for hours and hours and hours on end, and I hear their delivery style and their cadences and how they let a joke simmer, and how, oftentimes you'll want to move on with content because you already got your laugh. But if you just sit for another half a second or second, there's a secondary laugh that comes in there. So when you're like that deliberate about listening to how people put together their set or their craft, it really helps improve your own skill set and whatever you're looking to do, right? It doesn't matter if it's music or being a garbage man. It doesn't matter so long as you're present and you're paying close attention. So Dimitri Martin is a comic that I really enjoy. And he said, the only thing I really appreciate about religion is how intolerant they are to other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And what that kind of correlates to what you're saying in terms of we get so caught up in this belief system that either A, has come to us through experience, or B, instilled upon us by others, that we close ourselves off to other potential truths. And I may have referenced this in our first podcast or another one. I don't recall. If I did, I'm sorry. If I didn't, I think it's an amazing story that kind of captures the essence of what we're saying. There's a religious speaker who talks about the importance of God and a higher power, and he was speaking to a large audience of atheists, and he had this chart, and he drew a pie chart, a circle, right? And he asked, if this is everything that we know about this world, everything, every bit of knowledge that we could potentially have out there to be had, if this is everything that anyone could know on the planet, how much would you say that we in this room actually know, right? And so he starts to go through the pie chart, and he tries to, identify, what is it, this much? Is it half? Their group is like, no. Is it this much? And it got down to be like between 5 and 10%, maybe less. And so he said, in this large sliver of 95 to 99% of shit that we don't know, could it be possible, maybe, just maybe, that in this group of atheists, there is a possibility that something exists that is godlike or bigger than us? And that point was inarguable. Like, you can't, if we agree that we could not possibly know, 95% of what there is to know, then there has got to be some potential for something out there to be a different truth than what we hold. And that's what I think that you're articulating. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's totally accurate. So call it what you want: religion, the universe, source, energy, what Buddha, whatever you want to call it. It's really all the same. We're all trying to say the same thing. They're just different dialects. Okay, so what happens in the outside world, because you do have an inner world also, and we'll talk about that in a second, but what happens in the outside world is, everybody wants to be right. Okay, we'll just take religion for example, or even politics. You can see it. When you choose a side, you are really saying that you oppose everything outside of that. So is that really who you are? You know what I mean? It's not who I am. It might be who other people are.
Well, so let's uncover that just a little bit, because take very specifically Democrat versus Republican, right? You have some Democrats or some Republicans that are more pro-life or not pro-life or whatever it may be, but they still fall on the opposite end of the political structure. Mm-hmm. So that blanket statement of you oppose everything the other group stands for, what specifically do you mean?
Okay, if you just remove the labels for a second.
Okay.
Just look at it, everything as a whole. In politics, what do you see? It's clear that everyone, 100% of us, can see chaos.
Absolutely.
Okay? It's pretty clear that most of us can't see a lot of structure.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay? And that's across the board. So now add the labels in there. How does that shift your perspective? Okay? You start feeling those feelings of opposition. Like, maybe I'm losing the battle. My life is going to pop because they can't get their shit together.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to be negatively impacted based on the decisions that these folks are making.
Why? When the world around you is around you right now, look around. That's all you really have. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started going, man, it's like that with everything. It's like that with everything. I had a really bad experience in church after several good years of experiences in church, but the one bad experience really changed my trajectory and sent me into that atheism thing. This is probably 15 years ago. So I did explore that. I was trying to find a side. I was trying to find who I am by choosing a side. I don't want to choose a side. I love everybody. And I think that is the biggest key. When we can dissolve labels and look at things for what they actually are, we're just going to simply see ourselves. So we'll just talk about Donald Trump for a second.
You're really trying to get under my skin.
No, I'm not. But maybe you've chosen a side. The one thing about that guy that fascinates me is he's the biggest mirror walking the planet right now. So, man, if you had a hatred bone in your body or a judgmental bone in your body or what you name it.
He brought it out.
He brought it out.
Yes.
Okay? He isn't going to change it. You have to change it. Okay? So if you've gone your entire life with that stuff down inside of you and you decided that he was going to be or didn't decide that he was going to be your trigger, you should know what your issues are to deal with at this point. And it really points back to, everything we do ultimately comes back to us. Mm-hmm. It just does. We can't lay it upon the shoulders of somebody else. Taking responsibility and going, man, I'm only seeing this because that's who I am. That's hard to admit. I really do have to give him kudos, though. He was really that person in not in my life, but within the ability to see that I really had a lot of judgment because I did start out that way with him. But
it's very thoughtful of you to give him kudos when he's already given himself all of them.
That's fine. But here you are judging. So I would, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know exactly what you're saying. And I love this conversation because this is exactly the same. It's the racism conversation that we had, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about when we've brought up this subject before, you see me getting uneasy. And it's not uneasiness like that I don't enjoy the conversation. It's that sometimes you push really hard on me, which I appreciate because you're really trying to. And at one point in time, you even said, I'm just pushing to see how hard you'll go, like how hard you'll take it. I feel like I have a pretty good read on people, right? And so when you bring up this subject to me, I often talk about like it's not his stance, like it's not his politics, it's not It's not Republican versus Democrat. It's not like, I just don't like the guy. Like, I just don't think that he presents, I don't want my daughter to think that this is the example of what the highest power in the land holds and how you treat people. Because at the core of what I stand for, what I say that I stand for is treating people with respect, right? And if you fuck up, Larry, I'm not going to call you out in front of millions of people. I'm going to respectfully talk to you like a human being and potentially even offer you an opportunity for self-discovery. That's where my beef has always lied.
Well, first off, what you don't want your daughter to grow up seeing, just know that it's you are the higher power to her. It's not. So it's if you lead by example, your daughter, all of the stuff, the world around her will take care of itself. It just will.
Fair.
And so to me, that's the power. That's one of the things my kids taught me. That's the power of being able to go, man, it's not their fault.
Right.
They don't know. They don't know any better. It's not their fault. It's me. And I always say that stuff to you. It's me. I can only be concerned about my own economy. I can feel for others that feel their economy is not that good.
Right.
I cannot get on board when my economy's good. I can't get on board with a blanket, the economy is a terrible thing.
Right.
So why would I do that in the rest of my life?
Sure.
When all that matters to me is what's around me, seeing my kids every day, hanging out, doing the stuff that I love to do, but also knowing that the problems that I suffer from weren't caused by anybody else. They're caused by me. And when you have that, that's power. That's higher power. That isn't a higher power from the outside world. That's higher power from within going, you got this.
Right.
You can do this. And when you lead yourself, you're not only the shepherd, but you're also the flock. When you can lead yourself like that, those that are around you, like your daughter or whomever, those are the things you cannot teach them. That's why I say I don't have anything to teach anybody. I just show up every day. And 20 years from now, or 10, or even 5 years, I'm going to see exactly in my daughter the things that I have gone through that she's picked up. Mm-hmm. And if you're a powerhouse for your kids, it all of a sudden doesn't matter what a Donald Trump or anybody else is going to do.
Right.
It's just not going to matter.
Wait, I asked you before we started this because you and I could talk for hours and hours and hours about any topic, right?
Yeah.
What do you want the theme of this to be? And I think we just identified it. Like, the theme of everything that I hear you saying is we look to everybody else for reasons. We look to everybody else for excuses. We look to everybody else for why things are the way that they are. The people leading our country, the religions that move us, the bosses that we keep. And I say keep intentionally because if you have one that you don't like, you choose to continue to have that boss in your life, right? You're in more control. This is what I hear you saying. You're in more control of the things around you and your existence and your environment than you've ever given yourself credit for. And I think that's a masterful place when you can get there. And ultimately, I asked earlier about people are constantly looking for the how. Like we're all, you mentioned shepherds and flocks. These motivational speakers, these Instagram influencers, all these individuals that we look up to for guidance or to reveal our truth or whatever it is, we look for them to say, how? Tell me the how. Like, I'll do it if you just tell me how.
We look for them for the answers.
The answer. That's right. The answer.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, and you hit on this early on, your answer is different from my answer. I will never be able to tell you what your path looks like. What we can do in front of every group I ever speak with, we have two goals. We want to have some fun, but that doesn't fall solely on my shoulders. And the second thing is I want to leave you with some tactical information to help drive quality of life improvements. Then I don't explicitly say, Larry, go do this. Because my this is different. But what I try to do is I try to create an environment for self-discovery where I present items that I do.
Consider doing this.
Doing this.
Yeah.
And maybe find what that looks like for you. But everybody wants the answers, and they want somebody else to explicitly define what that is.
Okay, I think I can do it. I think I can. I can't tell you what they are, but I think I can safely say that all of the answers are inside of you. They're all there. Every ounce of them is there. I just had to stop my chaos long enough to start seeing glimpses of those answers. And let me give you an example of how an answer is inside of me, so you can recognize it in the outer world, because those are two different worlds existing simultaneously. So if you live inside, and I don't mean live inside being an introvert, I'm saying live inside of yourself, clean your garage, get it organized,
being
right?
self-aware.
Being self-aware.
Taking self-assessments.
What's going to happen is the outside world is going to show you all of the answers that you have inside of yourself. So if you're a person that has to rely on visuals or kinesthetic feelings, touching, that kind of thing, you can use that to tap inside. And that is where all the magic happens. So you see something, a situation unfolding, you know that, and I got to a point where I know that it's something inside of me, or I wouldn't be seeing it. I just wouldn't. I'll give you an example. Going down the highway, and this is a very specific one of hundreds of examples that I've seen. I'm going down the highway, and I'm upset. I'm mad about something. And when I get mad, I'm intense, and there's nothing that exists outside of that, right? Mm-hmm. Guy drives up 100 miles an hour behind me, gets right on my ass, right? And immediately I want to blame this. I just want to sling at this guy because I'm already angry. Mm-hmm. At the point, me having some consciousness awareness, I realized that was really me. I need to slow down. I need to stop riding people's tail. I need to go about life in the right lane. Every now and then get in the left lane, but I was bringing about on me the things that I was putting on people. And they just show up in different ways. And so it's not a coincidence. It was me simply recognizing that I'm walking around out here living the life that I live inside. So if my garage is not clean and I'm not right with myself, or I'm not right with God, or I'm not, whatever you want to call it, right? Things aren't going to be right in the outside world. And that's when I started to realize, man, it has nothing to do with people out here other than they are here to show me what I need to work on. They can't teach me anything any more than I can teach them. But every single day, life gets better. And you see, my end goal is the Fundamism, all 24 hours a day when I'm not sleeping. Fundamism. I want to live Fundamism. I love the concept of Fundamism. I love what you stand for, what you're out there doing, and you're helping people to realize that, there is more to life than these structural things, these left brain, because the outside world represents to me the left hemisphere of the brain. And inside, I live in the right hemisphere of the brain. How do I bring those two things together? I just had to take enough time to realize that I really need to get to know myself through other people. And now I feel like I'm on fire. The times that I just the times where I would generally get mad and I would stew over stuff forever they're long gone. I mean, I'll get glimpses of them, but I'm quick to catch it now and just go, it's you. It's you. It's not them. Leave them alone. It's you. You know, your silence in the situation is going to help you come back and just and use that time or that situation or thing that unfolded as time to reflect.
So self-reflection is obviously super powerful. We talked about that multiple times, both directly and indirectly in this episode thus far. I think it really, you just kind of sparked my creativity on an interesting activity potentially we could all incorporate. So
Hide and seek.
Hide and seek, maybe. It is essentially hide and seek. So we all have these circumstances, these experiences, or these traits that define us, right?
Do they?
In our minds.
Okay. So you're right.
So what if you took this personal inventory or assessment? Like you took 2 minutes out of your day right now to write down a couple of characteristics that kind of define you, right? So maybe for you, and I know that we would agree upon this, is anger at times, right? Anger at times has allowed you to see things differently. It has defined you in the past.
It's defining me now.
It's defining you now. Okay, fair enough. And when I say this, I mean an honest assessment. So maybe it's anger, maybe it's empathy, maybe it's fun or humor, whatever it may be. So you define these characteristics and limit it to, let's just make it simple. Limit it to 5, 3 to 5. Write them down. And then as you go through your day, see how these particular characteristics manifest themselves in your interactions with others, how they influence what you see, right? And a really cool thing when you talk about left versus right brain. So let's say anger. Let's take anger, for example, and the very specific example that you gave with the gentleman coming up on your rear end, right? So you have your 5 items, and anger is on your list, and all of a sudden it's manifesting. This guy, as he's riding your butt, right? Forcing yourself in the moment to at least I'm not even saying implore the opposite, but think about if anger is how it's manifesting itself now, what would the opposite end of that? What would something completely different be to anger? How could I respond differently to this situation? That could be the how potentially for other people, at least just to expose.
That's difficult. It really brings us full circle back to the very beginning of this conversation, full circle about judgment.
Yes.
If you're just simply working on that, you're also working on all kinds of other things simultaneously. So you get the opportunity to choose. That's when you're not choosing a side, you're just choosing yourself, and you're going, I can dissolve all of this, and the world around you will take care of itself. You'll start seeing less angry people. You'll start seeing people that are more kind, more giving, more open, more, loving, more, all of these different things. And so it is a good idea to probably write those things down. I did the same thing with my belief systems. When you can actually see it right in front of you, the one thing that I'm realizing is that every breath I take and every step that I take, I'm the one that's creating.
Was that the police?
Yeah, it was 1984. I am creating my environment. Okay? So I'm the creator of that. Somebody coming up on me used to be, they created the issue for me.
Yes.
No. I'm discovering that I created the issue for me. My mom always used to tell me, you create problems for yourself. You get yourself in all this trouble and all these things, and man, it's hard to parent you. But I just want you to know, you create the problems for yourself. And that never rung very clear until recently.
Travis Kelce said that in our podcast. And I use this I play this little snippet in it's 1 minute and 15 seconds in every single keynote I do. He says, nobody and nothing is more powerful on this planet than you when you decide to make a decision.
Man.
It wasn't the people I was hanging around, wasn't the circumstances it was me and my decision making.
You know what's funny is you can hang out with the people that you thought were negative. If you change your mind, you don't change. I didn't change my mind about these people. I just changed my mind about the way I looked at them. And man, that is the prime gateway.
That's like my buddy Chad Carden used to say, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Oh man. When you add awareness in there and you walk around and you're always like, not hyper aware, you're aware to the point where you should be, so you get to know yourself. You start seeing that, man, when you walk into a McDonald's, you can make it go crazy in
Why
there.
has it got to be McDonald's?
Well,
you're not doing
because
McDonald's anymore.
I have a specific situation, several that I deliberately did, but that's for a different time. But you can make things go crazy. You can, you said in the very beginning, you create this environment for other people. I am simply really working on myself to create the environment for myself. And I think just other people feel it.
Yeah.
Whether I'm angry, they feel it and they go away. If I'm kind and I'm in this awesome space that I spend a lot of time in, then they feel that too. So I'm not like cleaning my house to get ready for people to come over. I'm just cleaning out inside so that people, when they do come around or come over,
there's room.
There's room. They feel welcome there. They feel like they could be there forever. We could have conversation about anything, and they know I'm not going to judge them.
Sure.
And that's ultimately all I want.
Well, Larry, I find you absolutely fascinating. I care about you a lot professionally, but you're definitively one of my best and closest friends, and I thank you for the guidance that you provided me in my life. The two things that I would really like to ensure that everybody takes away from this is, you talked about us being the creator. And I think that's the title of this episode. I'm the creator. You're the creator, right? There was a time, I had a buddy recently tell me, you want everybody to like you, don't you? And there was a time in my life where I would say yes. I think that I used to want everybody to like me. But then I realized that that's not possible. And I found that the more that I liked myself, the more that I was authentic, the more that I didn't give a shit what other people thought about me, funny thing happened. The more people liked me, the more people wanted to be around me, the more people recognized the value that I offer. Why? Because I wasn't coddling and catering to what they wanted. I was being authentic. And as a result, that's not something that people see regularly. So I'd like to challenge everybody listening to this. Find out how to become your own creator. And specifically, I love the exercise of just doing a personal inventory assessment, 5 characteristics in how you see the world, whether it's anger, empathy, joy, fun, whatever it may be, judgment, whatever it is. I want you to write down these 3 to 5 items and see how they manifest themselves in your day. Give me an example. Oftentimes we listen to this because we want to be mindless, and it's just, it's joyful to just get out of our head and listen to somebody else talk about it. I invite you as the listener to send me either via Facebook, direct message, email, Twitter, LinkedIn, I don't care. Tell me how one of your traits manifested itself, and we're going to create a conversation about how it could potentially be different on the opposite end of the spectrum. Larry, in closing, what do you have to say to send all of these good folks off with some Fundamism? In synopsis.
Yeah, I'd say just do your best to live in the moment. If you did, I found that the future, when I'm thinking about the future, it causes me a great deal of anxiety. When I'm dwelling in the past, that's where my anger is. And to neutralize all of that, if you're feeling those types of things, I have found that the more I can just live in the moment, do the things that I love to do, gravitate towards having fun, all of the things that you have got and stand by with Fundamism, I think you'll just realize you don't really have problems. They're just perceived issues.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
well, thanks, brother. Greatly appreciate you as always. Again, I challenge you, reach out. Tell me how this trait manifested itself in your day. Let's create a conversation. You never know what this conversation could do to help you but most importantly, to help those around you. From the bottom of my heart, I'd like to say thank you, as always, to all of our Fundamism listeners. You guys are creating this philosophy with me. We are taking fun, joy, and fulfillment to the masses, and we could not do it without you. So today, we encourage you to go out and create some joy and fun in your life, but potentially work hard to ensure that you're doing the same for others. As always, we're out. Have a blessed day, and deuces!